Hey guys, it's Sagar, and in this video, we are going to take a very detailed look at all the cameras on this Xiaomi 12 Pro. I don't think I have used any phone before this which had 350 megapixel cameras on its back, so I was really excited to try it out, and boy, it did not disappoint me. There is a very important thing which you guys need to know before we go any further. Xiaomi did not send me this phone and it is not a review unit. I purchased it with my own money, so I don't have any obligation to just say good things about its cameras. If I like the cameras, I will let you guys know about it, or if I don't like them, or if I think anything needs fixing, I will let you guys know about that as well. I have already uploaded a camera comparison video between this phone, OnePlus 10 Pro and the iPhone 13 Pro, because some of you guys who wanted to get either one of these phones wanted me to upload the comparison video first. If you guys missed it, you should definitely go and check it out. I will leave a card to it on the top right corner of your screen and also link it in the description section. Let's come back to the Xiaomi 12 Pro. It gets a very impressive set of cameras. Primary camera at the back gets a 50 megapixel Sony IMX707 sensor with f1.9 aperture and OIS. It's a huge custom sensor which Sony made for Xiaomi. Next is a 50 megapixel ultra wide angle lens with 115 degree field of view and f2.2 aperture. And finally, there is another 50 megapixel sensor with f1.9 aperture and a 48mm or 2x optical zoom lens. At the front, there is a 32 megapixel selfie camera with f2.5 aperture and 26mm focal length. Interface of the camera app is similar to most of the recent Xiaomi smartphones. You can swipe to the left or right to switch between various modes. There are lens selection buttons above the shutter button and a few more toggles along the top bar. Tapping on these three lines on the top right corner gives you access to a few more options. You can hit the more option or swipe up to get to all these shooting modes. There is a Pro mode which lets you adjust all the settings like white balance, focus, shutter speed, ISO and exposure according to your liking. You can even change the lens and shoot RAW or 50 megapixel shots in this mode. The range for ISO is from 50 to 12800 and the range for shutter speed is from 1/4000th of a second all the way up to 30 seconds. And the best thing is, all these options are available while shooting videos as well. With all of that out of the way, let us move on to the image and video samples. We have over 125 image and video samples from all these cameras combined, so let us start with the ones which I took with this main rear camera during daytime. It's a 50 megapixel sensor, but these are 12 megapixel binned images. I'm not sure if you can notice this or not, but these are incredibly detailed shots. You can see a lot of details even as I zoom in on them. Now there is something in these images which I only noticed after comparing them with the ones from the iPhone 13 Pro and the OnePlus 10 Pro. You will see more contrast in these images, which makes the shadows appear much more darker than how they were in real life. But then again, as I said before, I only noticed this when I compare these shots against ones from other phones. By looking at these images alone, you might not even notice that. And even if you do, I think the extra bit of contrast adds a unique look to all of your Xiaomi 12 Pro's images. And the best thing is, it keeps this look consistent throughout all lighting conditions. The slight extra contrast makes these colors look a bit more saturated than how they looked in real life. I won't say they are overly saturated or that there is anything wrong with the way they look. It's just that they are not the exact representation of how the scene looked in real life. Everyone perceives color in a different way, so depending on your taste and preference, you may or may not like these colors. I like slight less contrast in my images, so I ended up boosting the shadows for some of the shots which I wanted to share with others or on social media platforms. Since it's summer, I got to take a lot of images when the sun was nice and bright, and you can see how the main camera handles the dynamic range in these situations. It managed to capture a lot of information in these leaves while not letting the bright sun blow up the entire background. It's not the best implementation of the HDR mode that I have seen, but I think it still got the job done in these shots. It doesn't always perform this well. In some situations like this one, it kept the sun from blowing out the whole sky, but it failed to bring back a lot of details from the shadows. Here is how the OnePlus 10 Pro handled this shot. So the HDR mode on the Xiaomi 12 Pro just gets the job done. It's not doing wonders for the images or anything like that, but it is not too bad either. I believe if Xiaomi really wants the 12 Pro to be the best camera phone in its price range, this is something which they need to address ASAP with a software update. If you have liked this video so far and if you are new to this channel, please consider hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon next to it. That way, you won't miss out on any of the amazing videos coming up on this channel. Coming to the close-up shots. Despite of having a huge sensor behind it, the main camera is very fast at setting the focus on a nearby object or on the object which you tap on. As you can see, the main subject, which are the flowers and the fence in these shots, are in perfect sharp focus, and thanks to the huge sensor and f1.9 aperture, the background gets a very nice and creamy bokeh. A big image sensor is great for capturing more information in each image, but it also makes the plane of focus very thin. So if you are too close to your subject, some parts of it might appear blurry or fuzzy. In that case, just move a few inches away from your subject and the camera will capture a lot sharper close-up shot. The extra bit of contrast gives these close-up shots slight depth, making them look that much better. Sadly, Xiaomi did not give us a macro mode on any of these lenses, which is a shame because even their budget smartphones come with excellent macro cameras these days. There is, however, a workaround for that. I mean, sort of. Since all of these are 50 megapixel sensors, you can zoom in on the images from the main or telephoto camera and get really close to your subject. Yes, I know this is not an alternative to actual macro capable lenses, but since there is no dedicated macro camera, we will have to make do with what's available to us. The results are in front of you. They might not be the best looking tight shots, but at least you get the option. Speaking of other cameras, here is how much of the scene the ultra-wide, wide and telephoto lens will let you get in the shot by standing at the same spot. Since these are all 50 megapixel sensors, there are plenty of details all around. The wide lens comes in handy when you want to get more of the scene in the shot or capture a different perspective like in this shot. And the telephoto lens comes in handy when you want to get closer to a distant subject like in these shots. As good as the telephoto lens is, I wish it came with a higher optical zoom range so we could get even closer to the distant objects. The ultra-wide angle lens gets a 115 degree field of view, which is much wider than the normal lens, but it falls way behind the 120 degree field of view ultra-wide lens of the iPhone 13 Pro or 150 degree field of view ultra-wide angle lens on the OnePlus 10 Pro. All that being said, this time Xiaomi has done an excellent job of matching the color temperature and white balance between these three lenses. It feels like all these images have been clicked with the same camera just by changing the lenses in front of it, which is how it should be, so a thumbs up to Xiaomi for that. Now all the cameras can shoot 50 megapixel shots, and here are how those ones look from the main camera compared with the default 12 megapixel binned ones. You might know this by now that you don't see any noticeable difference between the 50 and 12 megapixel shots from this far. You start noticing the difference in detail levels only when you zoom in 4 to 5 times on these shots. When zoomed in so far, you can certainly make out more details in the 50 megapixel shots. These 50 megapixel shots, however, don't show the best dynamic range, and it also captures a lot of noise in the darker parts of the image. Not just that, but these shots also take up a huge amount of storage space, so unless you are capturing some landscape or architecture, I suggest you stick to the default 12 megapixel mode. Here is how the 50 megapixel ultra wide angle shot compare against the 12 megapixel one. As detailed as the high resolution shot is, it blows up the brighter parts of the image compared to the 12 megapixel one, which is saying a lot since the 12 megapixel ultra wide angle shots themselves don't have the best dynamic range to begin with. Again, you will need to zoom in 4 to 5 times to notice any extra bit of details, and I'm not really sure who zooms in on the images so much. So personally, I stick with the default 12 megapixel mode for this lens as well. You can do the same on the telephoto lens, and to be honest, I don't find a lot of extra details in its 50 megapixel shots. In fact, you will see the 50 megapixel shots having more noise compared to the 12 megapixel ones, so it becomes even more important to stick to the default 12 megapixel mode on this lens. As in, many people mentioned this in their video that this phone can only take zoomed in portrait shots, which is not true. If you head over to the portrait mode in the camera app, there is an option on the top left of your screen which if you tap on, will let you take wide portrait shots as well. These images look good at first, and more importantly, the phone is quick at detecting the edges. It's not the best or even the most accurate one at detecting the edges though. But this is something which can get better via updates, and we have actually seen it get better with time on many Xiaomi phones. Again, there is more contrast in the shot, making some areas look too dark. And even with the skin smoothing option turned off, it still tries to process the skin a bit, which is not really looking very natural. Don't get me wrong, these portrait shots look good, but given this phone's price and flagship status, I expected it to be better at this. We have seen Xiaomi's phones priced much lower than this take almost as good portrait shots. If you click these portrait shots in various lighting conditions, you will quickly see its limitations. This mode doesn't handle the brighter areas all that well. It will overexpose any bright part in your shot and at the same time crush the shadows, giving the shot a very different or processed look. Zoomed in portrait shots look a bit better thanks to the compression of the background, and I think these shots handle the edge detection slightly better. But it again suffers from the same shadow crushing high contrast look, which I am not a big fan of, especially for these portrait shots. The edge detection gets even better while taking portrait shots of objects. I like to switch to the portrait mode for objects as well, as it makes the main subject pop out of the blurry background. It's like taking close-up shots where your subject is in focus and the things around it are blurred out. Only for these shots, you don't have to necessarily be too close to your subject. The next time you are taking image of something, try using the portrait mode and have the aperture set to something between f3.5 to f5.6 and see how good the images turn out. That brings us to the images which I took in indoors, artificial and lower lighting conditions. A huge image sensor behind the main camera, wide aperture and optical image stabilization helps this phone take amazing images in these lighting conditions. Even as I zoom in, you can see these artificially lit images have incredible details. The white balance and the color temperature in these shots is not accurate though. The lights in these images were white, but the phone tried to make them look warmer for some reason. Other than that, I really like how these shots came out. Even if you look closer, you will find that there is minimum noise in these images. There are a ton of details in the shots even as the light gets lower. Now these are not night mode shots, which make them even more impressive. When the light eventually gets even lower, you can actually switch to the night mode, and here are how those images look. In few of the night mode shots, you won't see as big of a difference because the images without the night mode already look so good. I think this has to be the best phone to capture night mode shots in its price range. If you saw my comparison video between this phone, OnePlus 10 Pro and the iPhone 13 Pro, you might already know that this Xiaomi 12 Pro beats both those phones in these lighting conditions. So if you are looking to get a phone for taking low light shots, look no further than the Xiaomi 12 Pro. That being said, you should know that this main sensor is not the best when it comes to handling lens flare when a bright light source is in the shot. Have a look for yourself how messed up the lens flare looks. Keeping this in mind, you will have to plan your shots in lower light accordingly so the lens flare doesn't ruin them. This is one of those phones whose wide lens also takes really good shots in artificial lighting conditions. And when you turn on the night mode, these wide shots look even better. When there is some sort of ambient light around, these shots might even look as good as the ones from its main camera. But when the light gets even lower, you will start seeing a lot of noise in these images and they won't look as sharp. Despite of that, I think this is the best wide lens on any phone for taking lower or artificially lit shots. Coming to the front facing camera. It's a 32 megapixel sensor. I'm not much of a selfie taker, but I still think that the front facing camera is a bit disappointing. First of all, it tends to overexpose the shot, which makes the selfie look a bit too flat. And even though it's a 32 megapixel sensor, these images don't feel that detailed. As you can probably tell, the skin tones also look a bit too pale and the overall selfies just don't look all that good. Next, it is capped at shooting 1080p videos. You can go as high as 1080p 60 fps, but that's it. It also doesn't handle the bright areas of the scene all that well, making the videos look really bad. Videos look much better from the main rear facing camera. It can shoot at a maximum resolution of 8K at 24 fps. I personally feel 24 fps videos look too choppy, especially if you are moving the camera or panning the shot. This Xiaomi 12 Pro is powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor, which if you don't know is infamous for heating. And if you're shooting with this phone on a hot summer day like this, it gets even hotter, and as a result, it starts skipping a few frames while shooting 8K videos, making them look even more choppy. So other than taking 8K video samples for these videos, I stuck with the 4K 60 and 30 fps video shooting modes for most of my videos. All these videos look good, but they still have a somewhat processed look to them. Just by looking at it, you can tell that Xiaomi is adding a bit of processing to these videos in the hopes of making them appear sharper. That, and this camera also tends to overexpose the brighter parts of the scene while again trying to crush the shadows. So you will always have to manage the exposure or brightness of these videos manually if you want them to look more natural. The stabilization on the other hand did an excellent job of keeping these videos stable. I was not taking any special efforts or walking gently to make these videos look smooth, but it's nice to see that the end results came out without much jitters. While there are plenty of fun modes in the camera app to shoot videos in, although all the rear sensors are capable of taking 4K videos, most of these modes like the dual capture lowers the resolution down to 1080p. The video modes which you are more likely to use for some cool effects like the blur mode or the color focus mode even lowers the video quality to 720p, so that is something which you should keep in mind. There you have it. We have seen over 125 image and video samples from all these cameras combined. And for the most part, I think the main camera on this Xiaomi 12 Pro is doing a really good job. I was hoping the video performance on this Xiaomi 12 Pro to be slightly better because its current price is dangerously close to the iPhone 13, which other than not being able to shoot at 8K, blows away any other phone when it comes to shooting videos. And if you're looking to get a phone with the main purpose of shooting videos, I think you should spend a little extra and get the iPhone 13 instead. For the images, I think Xiaomi has done a really good job, especially with the main camera. Sure, the HDR mode and contrast need a bit of tuning, but the information and details are there in these shots, and it is absolutely amazing in lower lighting situations. The front-facing camera on this phone is its weakest link. No matter what you have heard elsewhere, this camera is not good. I think there are many phones priced under 25,000 rupees which gets better selfie camera than this one. So that is what I feel about all the cameras on this Xiaomi 12 Pro. But you saw the images too, so what do you feel about them? And would you be willing to spend over 60,000 rupees on a Xiaomi phone even if it has such amazing cameras? Let me know in the comments. That is it for this video guys. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to the channel for a lot more quality tech videos like this. You can also check out some of the other videos from this channel. This has been Sagar, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.